Time for us to go way up north as we do each week at this time. And joining us this week from the Ashland area is State Representative Angela Stroud. Angela, hello, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. Good morning.
Good morning. Nice to see you. And we're in that period after the state budget, before the fall session really gets kicked off. And looking through your Facebook posts, I see a lot of town halls, a lot of opportunities to give a listen to folks. I hope you're drawing a few attentive crowds out there for your ability to talk about what's happening in Madison.
I always do. It's amazing to me how many people will show up to have a conversation about the issues that matter to them. So I do a lot of town halls. I think they're super important in a democracy. But I'm always stunned. This town hall in Washburn that regularly happens, there can be 100 people, standing room only. It's really incredible.
I don't know that it was always that way. I mean, I've had lots of listening sessions. One or two of them would have a pretty good sized crowd, but I feel like more people than ever want to come to things like this because they feel both motivated and maybe they first felt a little powerless and realized that they could go talk to a legislator like you and learn more about what exactly is happening in Madison and Washington, Madison, Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I think that we've kind of lost sight of what's needed in a democracy. We think of it in the last, I don't know when it started. I won't pick a date, but it's like you vote and that's pretty much it. And that's really not what democracy was ever supposed to be, or what it should be, or what it needs to be to make it healthy. And it's one of those things where sometimes you don't know what you had till you could see that you might lose it. And, I think that's part of why in this moment, people are waking up and saying, like, what would it mean to have an actual thriving, responsive democracy? And one of the things I get most at these town halls is, wow, you're so available. You're always responding. You're always available to listen to me. Like, where are our other representatives? And I always tell them that's an excellent question, and you should ask them that.
You noted in a post this summer when talking about the state budget debate that being a faculty member yourself, you took it personally that there was a Republican provision about a workload requirement for UW faculty. Can you explain a bit about that kind of level of micromanagement from politicians that should certainly concern all of us?
I appreciate this question so much. The state has all kinds of contradictions built into it. And, and the Republican Party in particular has contradictions. They say things like, we don't like red tape. We don't like bureaucracy, unless it's about the UW system. And then we want to create all kinds of red tape and bureaucracy because what we like less than that is higher ed. And also they're creating this administrative burden that means they're going to have to hire more staff. So every argument I have heard when I sit in committee for higher ed that they're constantly making on the Republican side, they just undermine that by passing this provision in the budget that would micromanage at the university level, the campus level, the workload of faculty. And to explain how absurd this is, like Northland College, where I worked, that closed this year, tiny college, 500 students, 47 faculty. At that scale, we couldn't figure out a standard workload across the entire faculty because every faculty member is different. They're doing different forms of service, different forms of engagement with students, in my floor speech on this, which I was very fired up about, I pointed out the workload of a faculty member isn't just teaching. It's so many other things that help keep a college running or a university running. And so the idea that the legislature in all its infinite wisdom is going to come in and decide a one-size-fits-all workload requirement is not just absurd, it's insulting, and it's a complete violation of how we should be operating. Excuse me.
No, that's fine. Again, you only got 2 minutes for the floor speech in the assembly, so I'm letting you get out whatever you want to get out now.
It was 120 passionate, intense seconds, I can tell you.
So we're talking to the State Representative Angela Stroud from Ashland. And but before we go, along with the listening sessions, there are those other positive aspects of being a legislator that I remember so well. You attended, for example, the opening of the Bad River Health and Wellness Center to strengthen that community. And what a contrast to see you doing that, participating with the Bad River, versus what we're getting from Congressman Tom Tiffany, the Senate President, Mary Falskowski, and others who are attacking the Lac du Flambeau community for trying to protect some degree of sovereignty on their land. Look, if I were in a position, I'd rather be in your shoes, trying to help these communities to grow and flourish.
I mean, not only is that what you would expect from any representative, right? These are our constituents. So the idea that you would demonize a segment of them is unethical. But also, the federal government made treaties with these sovereign nations. And those treaties mean we have a legal and moral obligation to live up to what we said we would do. That's not partisan, that's just ethical. And so it is a great honor to represent Bad River and Red Cliff. And you do that by having relationships and figuring out what each side needs and working together. And so I see it as one of the great honors of representing this district, and the animosity that other representatives seem to have toward tribal nations, I think, is indicative of a real failure of moral leadership. And people really should call it out more and recognize it for what it is, which is it's racist, it's insulting, and it's extraordinarily problematic.
Glad to hear glad I don't just have to hear myself say this over and over again. I've left us less than a minute here, but you were at a school board meeting last night, and again, the overview of it was that school districts continue to struggle, and that the latest state budget is not that much more helpful.
Yeah. I mean, in my district, the biggest problem we have is property values keep going up. And that's just because property is increasing. Like, that's not anything the school board's doing. But what happens when property values go up and the state fails to do its part to fund general aid for students is that now what taxpayers are going to see is that the school district is taking more. But that's not the school district's fault. That's the failure of Madison. And what I fear is that we're in this moment where Republicans have been pretty savvy, and they're finding ways to get people to demonize public schools so that it makes it easier to pass things like voucher systems, which otherwise people find really objectionable. Yeah. So I think this is part of a larger strategy.
State Representative Angela Stroud joining us from way up north in Ashland. Representative Stroud, good to see you. Thank you very much for your time.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Safe travels. Thank you very much.